Hi, my name's Martin. I've produced the teaching material for your 2 weeks at Southwold. I'm sorry I can't be with you this weekend. I hope you're having a good time. But I thought just before you delve into the teaching material, it might be a good idea for me to just give you a bit of background to Mark's Gospel, because that's what the material is about. It's about the Gospel according to Mark. Now, we say Mark's Gospel, but we don't really know who it was written by. But we do know who it was written about. It's written about Jesus. Mark wants his readers to know all about this man, Jesus, who lived, who died, and who rose again. He wants people to know what he did, but most importantly, he wants people to know who he was. At the time of Jesus' ministry, the Jews were living under the rule of the Romans. Now, this must have been a real kick in the teeth, because they were a nation who believed their land was given to them by God. And yet here they were occupied by a bunch of godless pagans. Different Jews reacted in different ways to the occupation. Some rebelled, some protested, some structured their lives around strict rules and regulations. But all believed that at some point in the future, God would rid them of the Romans and make them great again. This belief revolved around an enigmatic figure they called the Messiah. And the Messiah had been prophesied about hundreds of years ago by the prophets in the Old Testament. It talked about a Messiah who would bring about peace, prosperity, and greatness for the Jewish people. This was a man who would be a warrior, a king, who would defeat Israel's enemies and rule victorious over the whole world. At least that's what they thought. Mark, in his Gospel, presents a somewhat different picture of the promised Messiah. Mark is trying to tell his readers that Jesus is the Messiah, but not in the way they thought. Yes, Jesus performed miracles. He taught amazing truths about God. He questions people's way of thinking. But he wasn't there to start a war. He was there to change people's lives forever. So in this gospel, we're taken on a journey of discovery. Each step reveals something more about Jesus. And yet people seem to be blind to the obvious. Despite the amazing things Jesus did, very few people realize Jesus' true identity. And there comes a point bang in the middle of Mark's gospel where Jesus turns to his friends and asks them, "Who do you think I am?" Different people had different ideas, but Peter says, you were the Messiah. But Peter still had in his mind this military ruler who would be more powerful than the Roman Empire. But Mark says no. In many ways, Mark's gospel is a passion story, a story about the cross, but with an extended introduction. See, it's the cross that is central to the understanding of what the Messiah means. It's through his suffering that Jesus brings about salvation. It's his death and resurrection that saves us and demonstrates that Jesus is not just the Messiah, but is actually God. It was when Jesus breathed his last on the cross that a godless Roman centurion looks up and exclaims, "Truly, this was the Son of God." Mark is probably the earliest of the Gospels, and there's no in-depth theology or retrospective interpretations. No, Mark says it as it was. He tells a story, and he asks that we might believe that this man, Jesus, was actually God. And that's really what this teaching material is about. It's about telling the story. And through this, we reveal who Jesus was. It's not about analysis. It's about hearing, and it's about believing. And as you prepare yourselves for this time at Southwold, I just really encourage you to read through the whole of Mark's Gospels from start to finish. It's the shortest of the Gospels, and it should only take you about an hour. I just want you to get on the journey, to feel the excitement, and to pass this on to the kids and adults you meet. I just hope and pray that you will have a great time at Southwold. You'll be able to use this material, but most importantly, you will form relationships with the people that you meet. And through that, they might find out who Jesus really is.